How's it going, everybody? The Minecraft movie trailer here. So yes, today I'm going to be finally talking about Concord. After all, the game itself is going to be shutting down either tomorrow or towards the end of this week as I'm recording this, so I feel like I might as well at least just kind of talk about my own thoughts on this, at least before the game ends up inevitably getting shut down. Now, of course, I didn't exactly just want to do what everybody else is doing, which is covering some sort of random-ass article or covering videos or anything along those lines in regards to it. I want this video to be mostly my own opinions based off of what I have seen about Concord from what I've heard about Concord, as well as just, well, a lot of the discourse surrounding it, and probably one of the bigger elephants in the room, which we will be getting into. We will be getting into it. It is in the title and the thumbnail, I'm pretty sure, so don't worry, we will be getting into it, but just know it's probably not what you would think. But to put it extremely simply, I can just state this right now for you, okay? Concord is an absolutely abysmal game in every single fucking regard, okay? There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Everything from the concept to the designs to pretty much everything else is an absolute shit show, and I just feel like I might as well point out one of the obvious elephants in the room here, which is of course the character designs, because I feel like I might as well just point this out. The character designs in Concord are absolutely abysmal. These are just some of the screenshots that I have from some other sites, usually Reddit or various articles or anything along those lines of some of the character designs, and they are just not impressive at best. Like, it doesn't really seem like Concord even really knows itself what it was supposed to be. At least with other hero shooters of similar types to Concord, they usually have a set kind of design. After all, with Overwatch, it's usually that kind of like more sleek kind of futuristic. Whenever it comes to TF2, even its more futuristic aspects are stylized in such a way that it fits within the time period. If I were to try and take a look at some of the designs of Concord, I couldn't tell you what design they're trying to go for. We have, like, what appears to be some sort of knockoff Space Marine sitting right next to what seems to be like a space switch or something along those lines, and then of course we have what looks like the guy with like the singing dart from like fucking Guardians of the Galaxy, this time with a bit of a palette swap and actual hair. This game doesn't really know what it's supposed to be, which is probably one of the biggest flaws of this game. This game doesn't know what it's supposed to be, the design is all over the place, and that's not even getting into the character designs, just straight up being boring as hell. Like, they somehow managed to fuck up a Space Marine design that should be letting you know just how bad this game was already going to be in the first place. But of course that's only one aspect out of like at least 3 more that we're going to be going over that make this game just a flop from the beginning. And to just kind of give you some insight as to just how short-lived this game was, the average lifespan of Housefly is only about like 20-something days, and the day before lasted, I think, about 14 days before it got shut down, meaning that a literal scam game has lasted longer than Concord by about 2 days. That's, of course, if I'm getting my numbers right. I'm probably wrong on the numbers for the day before, but I know for certain that the day before lasted, the servers for the day before lasted longer than Concord servers. That's really all I need to know. And of course, I think probably one of the other things that make this game's failure just that unbelievably bad is the amount of studios that were effectively backing this game as if it was actually going to be the next big thing. We have people such as like, we obviously, you know, have Sony, which is like the main publisher for this, but of course we have like Naughty Dog, Insomniac, Bend Studio, all of these guys basically talked about this game as if it was going to be the next big thing. I really wonder how they're feeling right now, especially since this game appears to be an almost $400 million loss for Sony. That's at least like the most recent number that I fucking heard. But probably the next thing that I should probably bring up here, and a lot of this is alleged because I haven't seen any screenshot proof of this, is of course the fact that the developers for Concord can't seem to actually handle criticism well. It seems like the curse of ex-Bungie devs seems to carry on even to those who work on larger projects for bigger companies. After all, we have Thor, Pirate Software, basically being all for killing games, and for some reason still having an audience surrounding that, and now we have Concord developers who are all mostly ex-Bungie devs being completely unable to handle even the lightest amount of criticism and resorting to just blocking people the moment that they state, hey, you could do this in order to fix the designs, or fix the balancing, or literally anything in the game, and block people for whatever reason. Now, while it is true that there's probably a handful of assholes out there that were probably just being dicks to the developers, and I don't actually stand for that, it still doesn't change the fact that they were actually just blocking legitimate criticism, just because it was against their fucking golden child that they spent God knows how much time and money on. only for it to die within 12 days. But again, I want you guys to know that a lot of this is very alleged, but considering that I've been hearing it a lot from a lot of people that I know of, I have to at least include it here to just kind of point out the fact that this shit might actually be happening, and the Concord developers just don't actually know how to handle critique. And again, I'm being very lenient here because I know that these developers aren't just working for themselves, they're working for a larger conglomerate company like Sony. I don't even know if that's really the correct terminology, but you get what I'm trying to say here. They're working for Sony, and, you know, they're probably being effectively forced with payment to do this, to make a game like this. So I'm being a bit lenient here in regards to them. But of course, if I am in fact shown evidence that the Concord developers are just a bunch of fucking flaming assholes and pussies, then obviously I'm gonna call that shit out. But then finally, I should probably point out another thing, which is of course the gameplay. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, maybe the developers suck and maybe the designs suck, but what about the gameplay of the game? Well, the gameplay isn't really that impressive either. Like, to put it very simply, this game just kind of looks like Overwatch, but significantly worse. It's like they tried to just copy Overwatch's formula, but did it very poorly because they didn't even know how to make a game nearly as successful as Overwatch. The game is very slow, clunky, and boring looking, and honestly, I couldn't even see myself playing it, and I'm someone that would probably try out a lot of different games to see if I would enjoy it, but this is a game that I just can't see myself ever playing. But that's not even the biggest part here, okay? And we finally have reached the latter portion of this video, which is, of course, the biggest elephant in the room, which is, of course, is Concord woke? Well, drumroll please? Not really, and let me explain why. You see, the term woke is if you've been on my channel, you guys probably already know that the term woke has basically just been watered down to the point where it's used to describe just anything like progressive leaning or anything along those lines. Literally just any amount of diversity is considered woke. Hell, apparently there's an entire Steam curator list, in massive quotes, of games that are supposedly woke, and on that list are games like fucking Elden Ring and the South Park games. Like, that should be letting you know just how joyless these motherfuckers are, these anti-woke people that call everything woke just because there's rainbow colors in it. However, I feel like that there is a difference between a good, quote, woke game and a game like Concord. And the main difference between the two is, of course, well, just how the diversity is handled. The diversity in Concord feels very unnatural, very forced, and a lot of it just feels, well, inorganic. About as inorganic as you could get from something created by a corporation. That's basically what Concord feels like. It feels like something made on an assembly line rather than something that was actually created with any amount of intent or care. But of course, what makes that any different from other games that have inclusivity? Well, again, like I mentioned, the main difference is, of course, how it's handled. In fact, some of my favorite games I've talked about on this channel have a ton of inclusivity in them, and the thing is that, well, you can look past that, because once you know it, it doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel unnatural, and it feels like, you know, a regular amount of diversity that you probably just see in real life. In fact, let me just spitball you a couple of my favorite games here and how they handle diversity. First off, there's Celeste. The main protagonist is allegedly trans, and of course there's also a character of color in there in the form of Theo. And the thing is that nobody, at least to my knowledge, that actually has a fully functioning brain, is bitching about Celeste being woke because, well, once you believe it, a lot of the themes revolving around its diversity are very organic. It doesn't feel like it's being forced down your throat by some sort of fucking big company or anything along those lines. It feels natural, as if it was made by someone with genuine experience behind these kinds of things, and that's what makes it good. Another example here is One Shot, a game that I've talked extensively about, and made an entire over 2-hour long video talking about. Literally within One Shot, the actual lore entry for the main protagonist refers to Nico with they and them pronouns, meaning that, at least as far as we're aware of, Nico is non-binary, and nobody complains about that because, again, it feels natural, it doesn't feel forced, it feels completely fine. I feel like I might as well lump in Deltarune and Undertale here because its diversity, while there is a ton of it, it still feels extremely natural, and of course it feels very organic, while also being extremely comedic and fitting in with the overall themes of both games. It's fantastic how it's handled. And those are just a handful of examples that I can really pull off here of some of my favorite games that I guarantee you the anti-woke crowd would probably be screaming at the top of their lungs is presumably woke just because of its messaging. You see, the main difference between what makes a, quote, woke game and a good game is, of course, how the diversity is handled. And that should honestly be the main thing. You see, and this is something that was said by a friend of mine in my Discord server, just because diversity is handled poorly in a video game, it doesn't mean that it's woke. It just means that it was tone-deaf as hell. I am all for representation in video games, as you guys probably already know just from this video as well as just implications in previous videos. I love representation in video games, if it's done well, and I can understand when games are actually just trying to pander and, you know, knock off a checklist, which is how Concord actually feels and why people are complaining about its diversity, at least for the most part. There are in fact people like Synthetic Cuck who basically just whine about the diversity because he hates anything that isn't just light-skinned, so you know, there's just that. But that's only like one example out of like many people who just point out that it just feels like it's pandering, and again, that's completely fair. Overall, I feel like Concord is just a case study as to how to not handle a game just at all. Everything from the designs, to the gameplay, to the development, to just how they handle basically damn near anything, is basically what led to this game being the immense failure that it was, at least to me. But I want to know what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like, it's very well appreciated. Leave a comment down below what you thought about the video, what you want me to talk about next, and also subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more content such as this. Also go ahead and follow me on Twitter and join the Discord server down below if you feel like doing so. And yeah, anyways guys, this has been Sandy, and have yourselves a nice day.